Yeah, bad for the glass.
Oh, yes. Bad for glass. Salt water, very bad for glass.
Salt water?
Very, very bad. See?
I kept having this dream about him. It's always the same. He's alive, and this has all just been some terrible mistake. We just thought he was dead, but we were wrong. He's not. I had this the other night. And in the dream, I'm talking to him. I'm actually talking to him. And then I wake up. And I feel like I knew him, but I didn't. Not really. That was the oldest joke in my family. Ever since I was a little kid, Dad was always trying to sing one song, this song. And he would drill this thing to death, over and over and over. And my brothers and me would tease and make fun of him and laugh right in his face. But Dad never blinked an eye. He never got embarrassed about anything. He'd just go right on singing. He decided to become an actor after World War II.
Offhand, Lieutenant Yamuri, I would say all of them.
His specialty was Oriental character parts.
Perhaps now we could see the famous blimp.
Chinese houseboy, cook, waiter, Japanese gardeners, Korean peasants, wheeling, dealing, splitting boards with his bare hands, you name it. So picture this. It's 1958, and Dad is in New York, and he's between acting jobs. So he gets a job as a busboy in a nightclub, and Jerry Lewis is playing there. Well, Lewis finds out that Dad's an actor, so he starts this thing every night of ad-libbing with him during the show. Now, Dad just plays it straight, but he assumes this very heavy, fresh-off-the-boat Japanese accent, and it gets a lot of laughs. So they do this little thing every night. And one night in the middle of the show, Lewis turns to Dad, and he says, "Hey, Jerry." My father's name was also Jerry. He says, "Jerry, I want you to sing us an old traditional Japanese song." And Dad sings, "The stars at night are big and bright, bum, 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 deep in the heart of Texas." And everybody's laughing. And after the show, Lewis has Dad called into his dressing room. "You only do that to me once, Jerry." Dad's fired. It's like Dad launches this little career in musicals. A bunch of road companies, a flower drum song, and then in 1966, he's cast in the Broadway debut of a brand new musical directed by Harold Prince called It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman, with Jack Cassidy and Linda Lavin. And Dad plays Father Ling. He's the leader of the Flying Lings. They're like the red, commie Chinese bad guys, this sort of acrobatic gang of exotica that Superman gets to beat up at the end. And I knew these guys, Jimmy Olsen and Clark Kent, and Superman and Lois were in love. But it was the 60s. It was tambourines and mini skirts and bright pink and big hair and big bold songs and this big brassy orchestra. It was just like Broadway in all of New York. It was loud and colorful and alive and electric. I knew exactly what I wanted to be when I grew up. I go on audition for my very first college play. I go down and I sing, I dance, I put the cast list up, and my name is on it. I'm going to play the the Japanese waitress, and Jorge, the director. He likes me so much, he writes these extra lines to make my part a little bigger. Would you like sushi? 1 sake or 2? Hi, 2 sukiyaki. Hi. So I give it my best shot. Would you like a sushi? 1 sake or 2? Oh, hi, 2 sukiyaki. Hi, hi. And I got a lot of laughs. One night after a performance of Superman, Dad had a backstage visit from guess who? Jerry Lewis. And he congratulated Dad on the show, and he said he felt pretty bad about what happened back in the 50s. So to make up for it, he offered to put Dad in his next film.
I was telling my men the other day, remember? Now, here's what we gotta do. Bollocks of all American. We take this ship over
Dad.
and go over to that side. I take 2 ships. You take 1 ship, I take a ship.
And he was surrounded by all these little artifacts of his life to gather and piece some sort of a semblance of him together. And of course, my dad was a pack rat, so there's a lot of evidence to pour through. We used to tease him to death by calling him Fred Sanford. I mean, junk everywhere, but it was all very useful. See, scrap glass became aquariums, scrap molding, picture frames, an old metal cabinet someone left out in the alley. Next thing I know, Dad's barbecuing hamburgers in it. Everything on paper, too, every check stub, every tax return, every contract, every film or television script he ever did. I'm pouring through stacks and stacks of these scripts, and I'm finding things like Lassie, Have Gun Will Travel, Cat from Outer Space, Chico and the Man, The Waltons.
Where I was born in.
Come on in! What do you say?
MASH, 6 scripts.
So, hush.
Will be just as you like it, Capitan.
I would like to make you a proposition.
I bid 1, no trump.
And then it hits me. His life is so well documented after the war and chronicled in incredible detail. But there is nothing in this house that would describe anything about his life from 1912 to 1948. That's 36 years. 36 years and not a trace? Well, he did it. He successfully buried himself away from all of us. And then I come across this. This is a feature story from when Dad had a sitcom called Mr. T and Tina. This was a huge break for Dad to be, you know, series regular. And it was pretty groundbreaking. I mean, the first Asian American television show. And I remember now that Dad had given this interview when they canceled it. The Asian community had a really negative reaction to the writing. They particularly hated Dad. And he was personally attacked for it. And now this just kills me. I've never bothered to read this before, mind you, but I'm looking at it now. And he's told this reporter more about himself in one interview than he ever told me about himself, ever. His response to the show's cancellation, quote, "We are all too quick to condemn others without realizing the struggle an Asian American has in getting the job. We had a chance to be viewed nationally every week, an opportunity to establish ourselves within the business of acting. We need to get our foot in the door and then, once securely established, work at correcting stereotypes." So the old man actually had opinions on all this stuff. To accomplish this, he proposes more Asian American theater that would allow people to develop and write with sensitivity of their ethnic origins and, more importantly, to tell the truth about their history. I'm 12 or 13 years old, and I'm standing in my parents' room, and my dad is at the closet getting dressed, and my mother just casually mentioned something about Dad's first wife. What first wife? Didn't you know your father was married before? No, I never mentioned it to you. Oh yes, your father was married before the war. So I look at Dad. He just continues to get dressed. And I watch him as he removes the purple and white long-sleeve shirt from the hanger in the closet. He begins running his arms through the sleeves and buttoning the buttons and tucking in the tails. And I watch him as he removes the shoes and he begins the ritual with the shoehorn. And the whole time, oh yes, your father was married before the war. 1939, wasn't it, Jerry? And he had 2 little boys and a little girl, too. Well, the little boys are both gone now, honey. They both died. But the little girl is probably still alive somewhere, and we don't know whatever became of her. And I can hear her. But I'm riveted to this. This stoic, silent man has just become a complete and total stranger. Dad's in his 60s. He's 50 years older than me. Well, yeah, it's possible he could have been someone else's dad in all that time, but why wouldn't he have told me? And why won't he look up at me now? You know, we even talked about having her come to live with us when we were first married. I said, Jerry, she probably doesn't even know about you. She would have been about your age, too, then. Anyway, I guess you never knew. You had a sister somewhere, blah, 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 blah. And Dad just ties his shoes. His back turned away from both of us. She was born in 1941. She's exactly 20 years older than me. She's in her early 30s now. God, I wonder what she looks like. Maybe she looks like me. Well, right after my 13th birthday, we go up to Seattle for a vacation. And while we're there, Dad decides to look up this old Army buddy and his wife. And we go to their house for lunch, and we don't talk about the war or anything like that. But at one point, the wife, you know, she drags out the old Army photos. And I remember there's this one picture in particular of Dad in his American Army uniform with a little girl in a white dress who looks just like me. But it's not me. It's the 40s. It's World War II. It's not the 60s. And the man, he looks sort of happy in that picture with his kid.
Japs in a Texas division. Man, oh man.
They're not Japs. Huh? They're Japanese Americans. Nisei.
When I was in the 9th grade in California, we got an assignment in my world history class to do an oral report on World War II. Any topic. Penny's going to do hers on D-Day. Bruce is doing his on VE Day. 3 people picked Pearl Harbor. Everybody's picking the same old stuff, and I don't know what to do. And then I get this idea. Mom said that Dad was in this camp during the war, like for Japanese or something. That's what I'll do. And this will be so easy because I don't even have to go to the library. All I have to do is go home and talk to Dad. And I'm thinking, why is this so hard? You know something? The only thing he ever told me about the war was when he was in the Army, some guy from Texas called him a Jap. So Dad said to the guy, I am an American. But I am an American of Japanese descent. And supposedly that really shut the guy up. Dad, I have to do this report for school on World War II, and I want to do mine on the camp that you were in. Will you help me? Yeah, sure, Cindy doll. That was easy. Okay, so where did you live? Well, honey, we lived in barracks. What, like Army barracks, right? Yeah, like Army barracks, sure. Well, did you ever get to see your family? Oh, yeah, why wouldn't we? We lived with our families. But didn't you say it was barracks? Well, each family had their own apartment. Oh, apartments. But, I mean, you couldn't leave, right? No, there was a barbed wire fence around the whole camp. Oh, great. What was the food like? We ate a lot of beans. Navy beans, lima beans, pork and beans. With Franks? Well, yeah, sometimes. Well, was there anything to do there? Oh, sure, we had a dance. I played basketball. You had basketball? You had sports? I go to the library. I look for books. Any books on the subject, and there's nothing. Big, fat, nothing. So then I go to UCLA to their library, and I finally find one book in it with some pictures that Ansel Adams had taken of Manzanar, the camp my dad was in. They're smiling. The people in the pictures, they're all smiling into the camera. Oral report day comes. One boring military story after another, and I'm thinking maybe it's just, well, I mean, what am I going to say? They ate beans and Franks and played basketball all day. And there's one more report before mine. Brooke Sheldon. Well, Brooke gets up and starts doing her report on the Holocaust. She starts describing the forced removal of millions of Jews living in Europe who were sent to Nazi concentration camps. Kids start moaning out loud at her descriptions. diseased, emaciated people marching to the gas chambers, evil Nazi doctors, scientific experiments, horrible things, lampshades made out of human flesh. Everybody's getting totally grossed out, and everybody's really impressed. But over 110,000 people lost their constitutional... Well, no, they didn't have the gas chamber, but they had barbed wire, and they couldn't leave, or... Well, no, they weren't starving to death, if that's what you... I mean, they had regular meals, but you see, that's not the point. The point is that our government didn't have the right... Well, torture? Not that I know of. Shaved heads. Let me check on that for you. Oh, I'll check on that for you. Maybe there was nothing more to the camps than what Dad said. I never pressed it any further. Except my sister. I had this lifelong curiosity about that kid. And when I was 20 years old, my dad was 70 by this point, I got the nerve to do something about it. Dad, I'm trying to find her. I know you know about it. Are you going to be okay with this? And he's sitting there quietly. And I can't get a read on him. And I'm terrified, you know, because I know this thing is buried very deep. Much deeper than, say, the Purple Heart under the good linen in the bottom drawer. Maybe even deeper than losing 2 sons. Will, is it okay? Can I get your blessing? And this time, Dad says nothing. My best friend's father works for the sheriff's department, so I give him a list of probable names for my sister and her mother for him to check out through Social Security Department and the Department of Motor Vehicles, and he tells me to get a copy of Dad's divorce. Dad says nothing. Mom says write to the county of Ely, Nevada. Then she tells me to write to the VA. You know, apparently your sister received veterans benefits until her 18th birthday in 1959. Dad? Dad says nothing. But they won't release her address. So I asked them if they would forward a letter. My name is Cynthia Fujikawa, and I am the daughter of Jerry Fujikawa, your father. I've been looking for you for some time. I don't know if you know of our existence. I don't even know if you know your stepfather is not your real father. I don't even know if you want to know us. I just know you're my sister, and I have your birth certificate to prove it. And I'm trying not to sound like Psycho Woman here. And all on the slim chance that someone from her family still lives at the same address since 1959. So it's no big surprise when the letter gets returned to me by the post office. But because the letter has my return address on it when I send it to the VA, the letter gets returned to me instead of them. So there arrives in the mail my first solid clue. Her last mailing address in 1959, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Dad! Nothing. Well, I head off down to the public library. I look up every possible combination of names in the Albuquerque phone books from 1960 on. Ihara, stepfather's name, Grinnell, mother's maiden name, Fujikawa, birth name. I know it's more than likely she would have been married by what? The early 60s, right? God knows what that name is. And then he dies. So I go looking for a picture of us together. I can't find any. And finally, I find one. One. For my 9th birthday, I got this diary. I also got pants. We get to wear pants at school now. Boys get to wear pants. What's the difference? Boys get to do a lot of things. We don't. But my dad takes me on fishing trips. My dad, he used to love to go fishing. He used to go to this place called Lake Piru. When I was 8 or 9 years old, I begged him to take me when he went. I remember we had to get up at the crack of dawn. I remember the dog threw up in the car. And I remember I wasn't doing too much better than the dog. I was freezing to death. But I wasn't one of the boys, you know, so I wasn't supposed to complain. And I remembered to bring my fishing pole, which was a toy one made out of plastic. And I remember standing there on the rocks, freezing, looking at it, big plastic hook on it. How am I going to get the bait on it? Dad's and Charlie's were real, and they didn't catch anything. And then we get back, and he brags to my mom about what a trooper I had been all day. So the next trip was mine. And he took me to a way better place called Lake Henshaw. And this time, he made me a pole out of a stick with a piece of line just tied to the end and a hook with bait on the other end. And we sat out on the edge of this dock together in the bright sunlight, and I caught 8 fish with that stupid stick. Those 2 trips. Dad often went fishing over the years, mostly by himself, you know, off into the ocean. I would have liked to have gone with him again. Not long after that, Dad decided to move to New York. He said he was just going to go and look for work. Now, both him and my mother acted like it was no big deal, you know, just hard times, and, well, months go by. By this time, he's missed my 10th birthday. He finally finds a job in a department store, Lord & Taylor, and finally I get this letter. Hello, Cindy doll. You know I love you very, very much, and I miss you a lot, and I would like to go home. But I have to stay here a little longer because I have a good job here, and in Los Angeles it was hard for Daddy to find work. When I've saved enough money to go home, Daddy will come, Cindy. Please be careful and take good care of yourself and watch over Mommy and your brothers, and I hope our fishies are okay. Please write whenever you can, because I get very lonesome sometimes. Love and kisses, your Daddy. Christmas Eve. 10 months he's been gone. I can't believe he's not going to come home for Christmas. And I'm laying in the dark in my room, and I check the side of my bed, make sure Mom pinned my sock there for Santa Claus. It's there. And outside my door, I can hear her moving around. I can hear a fork in a dish. I can hear her rinsing it off when she finishes. Christmas morning, my brother is jumping on the bed. Hey, Cindy, wake up, wake up. Santa was here last night. You're never going to guess what he brought. Well, it's the best Christmas present I ever got in my whole life. All morning long, we opened tons and tons of presents, and Dad brought even more, and by noon, it's like turkey and pies and cookies and bread. And by 9:30 at night, I'm passed out, laying in the dark again. And this time I can hear shouting. It's Mom and Dad. And they're practically screaming at one another, and she's mad because he came home. And then that word, divorce, just cuts through it all like a knife. Dad bursts into the bedroom, and he gets his suitcase out, and he starts throwing his things back into it. And, no, where are you going? And then he runs over, and he throws himself into my lap, and he starts sobbing. I don't want to go, honey. I don't want to go. And then he bolts out the door, and we don't see him again until the next morning. And he comes back in with this bag of hamburgers. At 7:30 in the morning, he's standing there with his coat and a bag of McDonald's hamburgers. Okay, honey, whatever you want. You want a divorce? Okay. And then he flies back to New York. Well, that was the year of Mom's nervous breakdown. Starts with just a little post-holiday, oh my God, my marriage is over, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And 3 kids type depression. But by February, she's not talking to anybody but herself. And on her birthday in March, I throw her this little surprise party to try to cheer her up. And that evening, I find her over the sink with both wrists slashed. I start staying out of school whenever she doesn't go to work so that I can keep an eye on her. And that's when she says, Cindy, you hear those voices? Mom, what voices? It's a conspiracy then. You're all in on it. And sometimes I'll be walking home from school with friends, and I'll just see her driving back and forth up the street. She never notices me. Luckily, my friends don't notice her. By June, Mom stops going to work altogether. Well, I start worrying, what's she doing with all that free time on her hands? Then Mom runs out of money. Then the car breaks down, so Mom's grounded. So she sets out on foot. Well, I follow her out. Sometimes it's hard to keep up with her. Once, all the way to the beach, 5 miles. Other times, I don't know where she is. That summer, I contact the only professional I know. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been 1 month since my last confession. These are my sins. I lied twice. I took the Lord's name in vain twice. I'm worried about my mother. My mother is acting very strange. She hears these voices and she says she wants to die, and I don't know what to do. Tell me what to do. And he says, 3 Hail Marys, 4 Our Fathers, and a good act of contrition. In August, Dad comes back. Now, I know he knows something's different, but instead of saying anything, he checks into the hospital for surgery on 2 blood clots. I can't even go to visit him because you gotta be 12 to go to the hospital. But when Dad got out of the hospital, he came home, and we're all back together again. And my brother and I are at the grocery store a couple of weeks later, and he's teaching me how to buy the milk, showing me the date on top of the carton and saying, always check the date, Cindy, before you buy it. That way you know it's fresh. And we pull into the garage, and even from there we can hear her, God damn it, you let go of me! And we burst into the house, and there's my brother. He's got her all pinned down on the ground. And Dad's on the phone with the hospital, and then the police come, they put cuffs on her, and they take her away. And it took 3 weeks, and then she was home. After 9 months of living in Bedlam, turned out all she needed was medicine. And she walks back in the door, and I look at her eyes. I look, and she's there. She's back. It's over. It's over. But it had just begun. See, for the rest of Mom's life, she faces a war with mental illness, and we got to fight the war with her, and the war with her. Now, medication helps, you know, but she doesn't always want to take the pills. Please, Mom, I know you're not crazy. I mean, you've got nothing to be ashamed of here. She still has these horrible mood swings. I got to get used to being an angel 1 minute and a spoiled brat the next. Or you goddamn little bitch, and that's just how it goes. You got to understand it. You can't take it personally. You can't allow yourself to get hurt by it, and it's very, very challenging, to say the least. Enter Dad. He hasn't lived at home in a year and a half. And he's anxious to do the right thing, but instead, he incites her. He puts her on the defensive and then on the offensive, and we don't. He's clumsy. He's not used to these mood swings. We are. Well, you know, he's not stupid. I mean, he gets it. He's not in control of anything anymore, certainly not Mom. And we don't exactly need taking care of anymore. So he begins this endless series of attention-getting devices to try to win us back. His favorite thing is threatening to die. Now, damn it, Cindy, don't talk back to Daddy like that. Don't you know you upset me and you... Just listen to me for 1 second, Dad. You get my blood pressure up and I can have a heart attack and die. Is that what you want? The real thing is, see, is that both my parents got sick and are sick, but all of the attention goes to Mom. So his favorite thing is trying to out-sick my mother. Now, you must understand, Cindy, Daddy's not gonna live much longer. Your mother's sick. Your mother's always gonna be sick. But I could die at any time. Are you ready for that?
Let's go, Whiplash. You've had a busy day.
Dad built this solarium out in the patio for my mother for the mood swings. It's a funny little room. It's made entirely out of garbage. Old boards, this old shutter, and like these little pieces of molding all stuck together, like this little patchwork of scraps. So we're sitting out there with our feet up on the fish pond, smoking our cigarettes. And Dad says he's going to go and have that surgery in about 3 weeks. And I tell him I'm moving to New York. Are you running away again? No. You ran away, you know. When you went to San Francisco, you ran away from your mother. Well, I want this. You went to New York. You go to New York, you can't come back for a long time. You gotta stick it out. I don't want to see you again for a long time. Surgery turned into stroke on the operating table, turned into rehab, turned into no move to New York, turned into full-time nursemaid, turned into man who won't eat, won't try, turned into, come on, Dad, you have to, turned into 90-pound man, turned into hostile, hateful, resentful, frightened daughter. They called in the middle of the night. I was asleep on the sofa when I answered the phone. And then I woke up. This is the God's honest truth. I was completely shocked when he died. And he had been, you know, half dead. I mean, those last few weeks, those last few days, I mean, he was a dead man. There was nothing left. It was all gone. But I was never more shocked to hear the words on the other end of that phone call, see, because I had a history, you know, a much longer history of him dying and dying and dying and him never following through on the threat. And then he turns out to be human after all. Well, honey, they all grew up in the middle of Steinbeck country. Salinas and Monterey, that's where a lot of those Steinbeck novels were based, and a lot of Japanese settled there, like your grandfather did. And when Dad and all the kids were born, it was sort of a culture clash between his parents, who were immigrants, and his American life, which was actually very typically your father's generation, from what I understand. Of course, you know your father was the oldest of 5 and the first son. And his father was a first son before him. His father was before him, and so on and so forth. I used to tease Jerry to death. I'd say, Jerry, you're a son of a son of a son of a. And of course, you know, your grandmother was a picture bride. It's an arranged marriage. They had never met. She saw your grandfather for the first time when she got off the boat from Japan. 1910, 1911, something like that. Now, she was a widow with a 7-year-old living in Hiroshima when that marriage was arranged to your grandfather in California. So your father wasn't her first son. So, Mom, what happened to the little boy? She left him behind. So they had another little boy, your father, and named him Hatsuo, which means number 1 son. So, you want to know about your dad, huh? Us, your dad, the war. Well, I loved my big brother. Now, let me just say that first, okay? I know it seemed like there were rifts between us, but I loved Hatsu. I miss him very much. So, Auntie Marion, you were all very poor growing up. Oh, yeah, very poor. Very, very poor. So what was your mother like? My mother? Oh, she was wise. And she worked hard, too, I'll tell you. She even had her own business. She owned a pool hall and a barber shop. The barber shop was in the pool hall. Was she really a picture bride? I don't know. Oh, she never told me. Well, did she love your father? I think so. Well, me being the youngest and all, everything was fine in my eyes. But what about the war and the internment? I mean, it must have devastated them. Oh, you know, they took it in stride. But it was so wrong. Oh, yeah, it was all wrong. But you know, you do what you can. What else could we do? I go to the doctor's office. Fujikawa Cynthia. Yes, That's a Japanese name. One of your parents Japanese? Really? Which one? My father. Oh, Fujikawa, yes, Fujikawa. And your mother's the American. Why did I marry him? because he had been through so much in his life, losing that little boy that way and that awful first wife of his. And I wanted to make life better for Jerry. I wanted to think of someone other than myself. But Mom, why didn't he ever tell us about his first wife and kids? Well, you know, he never wanted you kids to know. It was my decision to tell you. And sure, he was mad at first, but I says, Jerry, I don't want the kids to find out over on school or on Sawtell Boulevard somewhere. Yasuko, you remember Yasuko? Gladys Kravitz, your husband. She says, now didn't you used to live on Mississippi Avenue years ago? Wait a minute, Dad lived on Mississippi Avenue? Your father met Emily in the late 30s after he had left Salinas, and he was working as a gardener in this big home in Beverly Hills, and Emily was a factory worker or a hotel maid or something, I can't remember. But anyway, Emily was white, and back then it was illegal for Japanese to intermarry with Caucasians. You're kidding. Oh no, they couldn't get a marriage license. They had to go all the way up to Washington State. Well, first came the twins, Eugene and Gerald, and Eugene died after only about 10 days or something, and that was very hard. That was very hard on your father. And then he always said it was the doctor's fault. I can't remember why, but he said it was the doctor's fault. And that left the other boy, Gerald. Well, your father adored him. And he gave him a nickname, too. What was it? It was Pumpkin. Pumpkin. And then a year later, they had your sister, Tersa, and they all lived just a few blocks from here on Mississippi Avenue in the Japanese section near your auntie's house. Your sister was born in that house. On March 31st, 1942, 4 months after Pearl Harbor, there appeared on notice boards in certain communities on the West Coast a number of signs that read, Civilian Exclusion Order. These bulletins warned all residents of Japanese descent that they were going to have to move out of their homes. There were about 125,000 persons of Japanese ancestry living there, and 7 out of 10 of them, having been born here, were full-fledged citizens. Each person had to register the names of all family members and was told to show up at a certain time and place a few days later, with all of them bringing along only such baggage as they could carry by hand for a trip to a destination unknown. Basically, this guy, Carl Benston, he came up with a plan to incarcerate the West Coast Japanese. First, the military designated the entire West Coast a military area. And then he got Roosevelt to sign an executive order giving the military authority in the military area as to who was authorized to be there and who wasn't. That's it. This is the basis of Executive Order 9066. Very big landmark event in the history of this country. The president signing away the constitutional rights of everyone on the West Coast. There's no mention of the word Japanese anywhere. And then the military excluded people of Japanese ancestry out of military necessity. Pretty smooth. And of course with public opinion on their side, but the real killer is this. Manzanar was already under construction prior to the bombing of Pearl Harbor. I meet some friends of friends. So your father's Japanese and your mother's American? No, they're both Americans. But which part is the Japanese? My father was an American of Japanese ancestry. Oh! Repression was applied one small step at a time. First they froze bank accounts. Then they rounded up suspects, usually Japanese-speaking people, first-generationers like my grandparents. They searched their homes for contraband, personal letters, family photographs, people in funny clothes, and then there was a curfew, then limits on travel, and then came the posters. All persons of Japanese ancestry, both alien and non-alien, will be evacuated from the above designated area by 12 o'clock noon. All persons alien and non-alien. What is a non-alien? Thousands of families were caught off guard and dispensed with everything they owned in 6 days, including their businesses, their farms, their houses or apartments, their furniture, their clothing, dishes, housewares, appliances, automobiles, and as people proceeded to dissolve their lives in less than a week, human vultures with white faces appeared from every direction, buying up property for 10% of its value. It was like the biggest garage sale this country's ever seen. How could you hope to store any of it? How do you know if you're coming back? Now, when we first went to Manzanar, you know, it was just one big open barrack. Men, women, children, bed after bed after bed. I remember, you know, there was a bachelor. He was sleeping right next to my son and I, so I put a sheet up, you know. They issued those army blankets. That's what I hung up. And then later they put up a dividing wall between the families. Of course, you could hear everything the other person said, you know. And you could hear every time they turned over, but there was a wall. Now, the mess halls. See, each block had their own mess hall. And each block had their own shower, too. Did anybody ever describe that to you? No? Oh, well, you know, that too was open in the beginning. And then later they put up a dividing wall between the men's side and the women. And this side over here was just all toilets, all lined up in a row, no dividers. And then this side over here was where we took our showers. And we took showers all the time in the summer because it was so hot. So hot. I mean, getting up into the hundreds. And then in the winter, temperature would drop down to freezing. We hardly had the clothing for it, being from Los Angeles. And our rooms were just, you know, boards covered with tar paper. I mean, there were cracks everywhere in the structure. And then we'd have these awful dust storms all the time. You could hardly see. You'd have to cover your face with a cloth in order to breathe, even in the house, because all the sand. It was something. What a life, huh? But the thing I remember most is waiting in line for showers, for laundry, for food. And people would think that we were getting meat and stuff like that, but lots of times we'd just get, you know, beans or something over and over because our food would get stolen by the guards. Nobody knows that. Well, what could we do? So, folks just tried to be comfortable. And you know, we had to improvise. But there were scraps laying around from the construction of the barracks, so we started to fix the place up a bit ourselves. You know, we had no furniture. We had to make it. Make a chair, make a table. Tumbleweed, floral arrangement. Scrap wire, basketball hoop. 'Cause life goes on, Cindy. And you make do 'cause you have to. By July of 1942, the Army had classified Japanese Americans as 4C, not acceptable for service because of ancestry. And yet, a little more than a year after Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, the President issued the following statement. Americanism is not, and never was, a matter of race or ancestry. So your father's Japanese and your mother's American? Every effort was made by Army recruiters to emphasize this as the Nisei's golden opportunity to now prove themselves loyal, and that by doing so, they would better ensure their future in this country. Well, that was April of 1943, and your father was all set to go into the Army, and then less than a month later, he received news that his father was dying in that camp in Arizona, Poston. What, a heart attack? Or, well, a heart attack, a broken heart, what's the difference? It wouldn't have happened if things had been different. Maybe if it hadn't been 100 degrees, for instance. So I send away for this, our file from the National Archives. Skills and hobbies. Skills, none. Hobbies, woodwork, football, swimming, fishing, hunting, music, appendectomy operation, application for public assistance grant. Assets, $45. Liabilities, $12. Cash income past 90 days, $20.04. Applied for shoe grant for family of 4. Was canceled by Mrs. Dill. Dear Sir, I have known Hatsuo Fujikawa for 16 years and can report that when he was a young fellow, he did not associate with the Japanese any more than he could help. As to his honesty or other character traits, I am not prepared to state. Mr. H. White, Grammar School Principal, Castroville, California. From Rocky Mountain News. 30-month-old Gerald Fujikawa was crushed to death under the wheels of a car in a parking lot. The accident occurred a few minutes after Mrs. Fujikawa, her daughter Tersa, and son Gerald had driven to Denver with relatives from Manzanar to find an apartment. They'd turned the car over to an attendant, a 16-year-old boy. Unaware the child was in front of the car, the attendant placed it in gear and started forward. A front wheel crushed Gerald's head and a rear wheel passed over his chest. This is to certify that Jerry Fujikawa, residing in Block 1351 within Manzanar relocation area, is allowed to leave such area on June 6, 1943, to go to Denver, Colorado for the following purpose: to attend funeral of son, and is required to return to such relocation area via bus and train as soon as such purpose has been achieved. Application for public assistance grant. Assets? None. Total? None. Cash income past 90 days? None. Applicant's needs: train fare, bus fare, and meals. Grant approved in the amount of $53.08. Remarks: this man's child, 2.5 years old, killed in accident in Denver, must be present at inquest. Will return to Fort Douglas for Army induction. Critical need. Man has no money. The day Emily left Manzanar with the kids, Dad said when the car pulled out of the gate, he ran alongside it, all along the inside of the fence till he got all the way to the end. And in the rear windshield, he could see Pumpkin waving goodbye. And he said he had a feeling. He had a feeling he would never see that little boy again. And there was a woman who witnessed the entire accident, and she offered to testify at the hearing. But when Dad walked into the courtroom in his American Army uniform and she took one look at Jerry and saw that he was Japanese, she had amnesia all of a sudden and wouldn't talk. Me and my boyfriend are driving to Mammoth to go skiing, and we're cruising north up Highway 395 in the desert, and it's sunny and it's gorgeous. And I look to the side of the road, I see a little sign, historical landmarker, 500 feet ahead. So I keep my eyes up, see what it's gonna be. And it says, Manzanar. Whoa, whoa, stop the car, stop. This is Manzanar. May the injustices and humiliation as a result of hysteria, racism, and economic exploitation never emerge again. So we walk around. The place is basically bare now, except for this little stone sentry house and these like cement foundations, I guess used to be the latrines. And I try to see it. I try to see the fence, you know, the fence that stopped Dad from chasing that car all the way to Denver. And my brother waving goodbye. But there's nothing. I mean, it is just empty space. Dad's unit had the highest casualty rate of any unit its size in the history of any American war involvement. 300% on the average. George here tells us Mr. Sulu went to camp too. That in the Rhineland campaign in France, its heroic rescue of a Texas battalion caught behind enemy lines, the famed Lost Battalion, resulted in 800 casualties to save 211 men. 800 Japanese Americans laid down to save 200 white guys from Texas. This is what I know of the rest. Pumpkin's death caused an enormous rift between Dad and Emily, and he blamed her for the whole accident. And then he was overseas, and she was writing him all these letters, and she was bragging about all these other men now and saying she hated him. And then when Dad got back, Emily divorced him, and she married another guy, another Japanese-American guy, on the very next day after the divorce. When Dad saw them in court, Tersa was already calling that other guy Daddy. That was 1946, and he never saw his daughter again. But I always told your father, if he wanted to, we could file for custody. You know, she would have been about 13 when we were first married. And apparently, he had tried to keep in touch for the first few years. You know, it was really Emily that avoided any contact. But I guess he just put it behind him and moved on with his life. But I'll tell you, every year on that child's birthday, your father would say to me, honey, my daughter is 15 today. Tersa's 16 today. When she turned 18, he said, now my daughter's old enough to make her own decisions. And when she turned 20, you were born, honey. And he never mentioned her name again. Lost. One white wife, 2 boys and a girl. Found. One white wife, 2 boys and a girl. I wonder what I would have learned if I had just asked him anything. Anything. One time I did ask him. I said, hey, Dad, why did you decide to become an actor? And you know what he said? I thought my daughter would come and find me if she saw me on TV.
I have eaten well today. I do every day. I have no need of your food.
August 10th, 1988. The Civil Liberties Act is signed into law after a long hesitation by the Reagan administration, and the law provides $20,000 in restitution to people who were interned and an apology by Congress on behalf of the United States. So they set up the Office of Redress Administration to administer payments to the survivors. Oh yeah, that's right. You gotta be alive to collect. You could be dead on the day after August 10th, 1988, and your family could collect on your behalf. But you can't be dead before August 10th, 1988, or your family's not eligible. And by doing so, the government's tab is reduced by over 50%. Well, the sad thing is that there's nobody left in my family to be compensated. I mean, my grandparents are gone, my father's gone, my brother's gone, my mom's not eligible, and that leaves One person. So I'm thinking, wait a minute. If she's eligible to receive $20,000, she's got to be registered with these people. So I call them. Then I write to them. And then I call them again, and I write to them again, and they're about as helpful as a bunch of banana slugs. June 1993. Okay, it's 10 years since Dad died. It's 5 years since the passage of redress. What the heck? One last call. So I pick up the phone, and this time I don't even get a person, I get an answering machine. Beep. Hi, I'm not calling about me. I'm calling to try to locate a long-lost relative I've never met, and so forth. And here's my number in New York. Beep. Well, the following morning, my phone is ringing, and it's Pamela from the Office of Redress Administration. We've just gotten off the phone with your sister in Anchorage, Alaska. She's waiting for your call right now. I'm going to give you the number. Whoa. Okay. Before I pick up that phone, I give myself a little talk. Now, don't be disappointed for whatever reason. If she's not who you fantasized her to be, if she hates your father, if she rejects you, if she turns out to be the president of the John Birch Society. I pick up the phone. I dial the number. There's 2 rings. And then a man's voice. Hello? Can I speak to Tersa, please? Yeah, hold on a sec. Terry? Hello? Hi, this is Cynthia Fujikawa, and I think, well, hello there. Hi. Is this a bad time? Oh no. I didn't know you existed. Well, I've known about you. I've been looking for you for years. Hey, is my father alive? No. No, I'm sorry, he's not. He died 10 years ago. Where are you calling from? New York. Is that where you live? Yes. And how old are you? I'm 31. Well, I'm 50. Yeah, I know. And I'm thinking, actually, you're 51. Do we have any brothers or sisters? Yes. We have 2 brothers. Hello, Cindy doll. You know I love you very, very much, and I miss you a lot, and I would like to go home. Where do you work? But I have to stay here a little longer because I have a good job here. And in Los Angeles, it was, where do you work? This little girl sitting next to me on the plane says. Me? I don't know. I don't have a job. I want to be a singer when I grow up. Yeah. When I've saved enough money to go home, Daddy will come. What are you reading? It's a letter from my dad. Where's your dad? Jeez, where's the mother? Where's the goddamn mother? He's dead. How did he write that to you if he's dead? Well, it's a letter he wrote to me when I was 9. How old are you? I'm 31. I'm going to be 10. 10, huh? That's nice. Well, how did he write that to you? Wait, how old did you say you were? 9 and a half? She's littler than I remember 9 being. Where's your mom and dad? Oh, they're back there. I mean, my mom and my stepdad and my stepsister, there wasn't enough room for me. Did I want to talk about it at that age? I think I did. No. I know I did. What's your favorite thing you ever did with your dad? When I got to see him, I got to play with my brothers and sisters. That was my favorite thing. I have a sister. I didn't get to see her my whole life. Really? How come? Well, it was the same reason, sort of. How old's your sister? She's 51. Wow! I know. But you know what? I'm on my way to see her right now. That's where I'm going. What's your favorite thing that you did with your dad? One week later, 6:30 a.m., Deshka Landing, Susitna River, Alaska. My first fishing trip in about 20 years. And we're fishing for silver salmon, and Terry is teaching me. Turns out she's this serious fisherwoman. She caught this 50-pound halibut once. I mean, it just kills me how much he missed with her, the fishing alone. So Terry and me, we decided to dedicate this day to our dad. And we've been talking nonstop. And every time I think that we've run out of things to say, we find another locked door, and we unlock it, and we start cleaning out all the stuff ourselves. It's an amazing time. She tells me, of course, that she grew up believing that her father left when her brother was killed because he didn't love her as much. And I tell her he was waiting all those years for her to find him. Then she tells me she hated her stepfather so much that she used to dream that her real dad was an actor in the movies. And then I show her a list of his credits. Twilight Zone, I Spy, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., The Untouchables, Kung Fu, Taxi, Policewoman, Police Story, Police Squad, Cannon, Archie Bunker's Place, The Winds of War, MASH, and she says, Whiplash Wang? My father is Whiplash Wang? And she expresses some anger because her mother had never said to her, that's your father.
We have some special entertainment in store for you, Mr. Solo.
But even then, it's only a little bit of anger, because that's the kind of person my sister is. She doesn't hang on to it. Yes, it's sad that Dad's not here. It's absolutely unforgivable that he and Emily both put their past behind them at her expense, and she paid for it in many, many ways, but that's her story to tell, not mine. But Terry and me, we have this relationship now. For us, there's no baggage to hang on to. It's all just future. I have this woman in my life who calls me her little sister, takes me fishing. Who would have thunk it? Back in New York, I attend the Day of Remembrance. It's a commemoration of Executive Order 9066 in this church on 7th Avenue. And it's very crowded here, and I don't know a soul, so I just stay in the back row with the press guys and the photographers. And at the end of the program, they announce the candlelight ceremony. What they're going to do is they're going to announce the names of each of the 10 camps and raise a placard and light a candle for each one, and anyone who wants to come up and tell their story can. They announce the first one, Tule Lake. Raise a placard, light the first candle. And 3 or 4 people rise. One guy says he and his wife were married just before evacuation, and they spent their first 6 months of their marriage in an assembly center, a horse stall at the racetrack. Another guy gets up and wants to remember his son, who died from an infection in camp. The kid had just had surgery when they evacuated, and they couldn't keep the wound sterile because of all those sandstorms, and the camp hospital wasn't quite finished being built yet. They announced the next one, Topaz. Raise the next placard, light the next candle. 3 or 4 more people rise. Next, Gila River, placard, candle. 4 more people. Next, Rower, Jerome, placard, candle, more and more. Heart Mountain, Minidoka, Amachi, placard, candle. And this one guy gets up and he says he was 13 when they evacuated, and his mother said to him, son, you can bring 1 bag. Well, you're 13 years old. What are you going to put in that bag? Well, he was a Boy Scout, and he wanted to bring his Scout uniform. But they wouldn't let the kids bring their Scout uniforms because they were khaki colored or something. So instead, he brought the plaque with the Boy Scout oath on it. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country. Now, I know there are 10 camps, And I know there are 2 more names to go. Poston, placard, candle. Poston. And I'm sitting there like a heel, and I'm thinking about a picture of my grandfather's funeral in Poston. The coffin adorned with flowers, surrounded by well-dressed, somber Fujikawa relations, posed in front of a barracks in the desert. And I think of my grandfather coming to this country at the turn of the century and living over half of his life in California, more than 40 years, and dying penniless in a concentration camp. Poston. Poston? No? Okay, last one then. Manzanar. Placard. Candle. Manzanar. I'm a stranger here. I don't even look Japanese, for God's sakes. Even the press guys are obviously Asian. If I go up there, I'll cry. If I cry, I'll look really dumb. It happened to a bunch of people I didn't know. I didn't know my grandparents. I didn't know my father. And then I think of the numbers, just the numbers. Over 10,000 people in Manzanar at its peak. Almost 20,000 people in Poston at its peak. That's like 25%. 25% of the people that were interned were in those 2 camps. And not one person at the Day of Remembrance in the little church on 7th Avenue was there to represent any of them. Except for one coward. Manzanar. Hi, my name is Cynthia Fujikawa, and I would like to remember my father and his family that were interned at Manzanar. Jerry Fujikawa, and my brother Gerald, and my sister Tersa, and my auntie Marion, and my cousin Kenny, and my auntie Masao, and my uncle Clarence, and my cousins Stanley and Janet and Gloria and Irene. I read the books, I did the interviews, I archived all the events. I even found his daughter. And I joined her loving, warm hand to his now invisible one. And guess what? It isn't enough. I miss him so much. And I've looked everywhere. And I can't find him. And then one night, I come here to Theater West. And I see this musical review called The Music of Jerome Kern. And a friend of mine in the show is introducing the first Jerome Kern song he ever heard in his whole life. Well, I've never heard the introduction before. I don't recognize it.
Old man river, that old man river, he must know something, but don't say nothing. He just keeps rolling. He keeps on rolling along. He don't plant taters, he don't plant cotton, and them that plants 'em is soon forgotten. But old man river, he just keeps rolling along. hold that barge, lift that bale, get a little drunk and you land in jail. I get weary and sick of trying. I'm tired of living and scared of dying.